Hello, welcome to our channel. Thank you for those who are returning listeners and those who are listening for the first time. We appreciate that you're taking time out of your day to listen to the Dhamma. Talk is the last in a series of 5 talks. This talk is about consciousness or Vinnana. We see this word come up in the Pali Canon in a reference to dependent origination. It's one of the first places that I notice it. It's the third step in dependent origination, and it's the fifth step in the recent talks about the 5 aggregates. When I started these talks on the 5 aggregates, I did not talk about consciousness at that time. I jumped right to a body, rupa, and didn't discuss the nature of consciousness. So I'll do that a little bit now. As I mentioned, it's the third step in dependent origination and the fifth in talking about the 5 aggregates. Recently on some of my news feeds on the smartphone, I've seen discussions about what consciousness is, talked by those scientists who are trying to investigate it. There's, as always in the sciences, a disagreement about the nature of consciousness. Our job is not to get sucked into or involved with these speculations, these imaginations, these hypotheses, these theories, these philosophies about what it is. We can take the Buddha's teaching to be sufficient for us to get started using it towards our own liberation. So, in talking about consciousness as the third step in the steps of dependent origination, it just gives consciousness as a cognizing, that would be recognizing or knowing that an act is taking place, and the noting or being aware of that act. The sense data that we're receiving through the 5 senses and the ideas that arise in the mind. So Vedana is a conscious acknowledgement of phenomena as they arise and pass away. And it's this consciousness that is a condition of the citta. Now, that word, if I understand correctly, is usually translated as mind. So here we have a distinction between mind and consciousness. And that that consciousness is a factor of mind. It's just one of the many factors of mind. So we should recognize that consciousness is just that. It's a factor of something greater, or bigger, more fantastic, or more developed than something that we just call consciousness. So consciousness is essential. It's that thing that with which we make contact with the world and acknowledges all kinds of things. It acknowledges our moods, it acknowledges our memories, it acknowledges our fantasies about the future, it acknowledges all the experiences that we have through the 5 senses. So Sankharas, remember, those are proliferations, fabrications, imaginations, constructing, supposing, etc. And Vinnana, that's what we're talking about today, consciousness, are parts or aspects of this greater thing called mind. Whereas the function of them is to project simulations or appearances outward into the world as if it were the world. I have recently listened to one of those discussions about consciousness, and some of these scientists are talking about the fact that we're not just receiving data through our five senses or sixth sense, we're also then projecting it as occurring out in the world. This is important that we recognize or remember or understand that everything we experience in the world has originated as an event in our consciousness. Without this consciousness, no mental factors, obviously, are available to us. That would be a state of a coma of some kind. Consciousness and all mental factors are interrelated. They're interdependent. They coexist. So the event itself and the awareness of it coexist, are interdependent. Consciousness arises through the interaction of these six sense doors that we've talked about and their sense objects. So I've talked previously that when the eyes see something, in that moment consciousness arises, and with it usually an opinion, which keeps our consciousness slightly polluted because we're not experiencing the object directly and without having an opinion about it. So consciousness technically lies outside the realm of the physical world. It cannot be discerned by the five senses, but it's the master of them. Now, this is the problem the scientists are having. They can't put consciousness under the microscope. They can only put the brain, so we'll say, under the microscope. They can hook up all kinds of machines to see a brain function. But that, and for those who interpret that function as consciousness, they're bound to conclude that when that function stops, consciousness stops. But that's not the teaching of the Buddha. So our job is to use this consciousness to inspect itself, to reflect on itself, and to learn for ourselves by direct experience what is the nature of this consciousness, what part of it, or why do we call it me or mine? Why do we identify with the experiences we're having as the result of this consciousness? So Vinnana is just that thing, this consciousness we're talking about in this talk. It's that thing that informs this greater thing called the mind. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the end. We trust you'll be blessed by every effort that you make to understand this pure Dhamma and the way it will liberate you moment by moment. If you have suggestions for us how to improve the channel or topics you'd like us to discuss, please let us know. Thanks again.